This is our final quarterback rankings for the 2025 NFL draft. It is officially draft week, and this is the only quarterback rankings you guys are going to need. We're going to break down our top, 7, 8, 9 quarterbacks in the 2025 draft, give ideas and thoughts on where we think they should go in rookie drafts, kind of strengths and weaknesses of the players, so on and so forth. And we'll get things kicked off, Danny, with the guy that most people are assuming and definitely betting favorite-wise to be the first overall pick in the NFL draft. And that's Cam Ward, who makes up that first tier of quarterback for us by himself because, as dynasty players, the difference between a first overall pick quarterback and even a 10th overall pick quarterback, or then even a 20th overall pick quarterback, and then once you get into the second round, is just massive. Like the amount of opportunity you're going to get to start for an NFL franchise, the amount of leeway you're going to have to grow and develop into your role, it's just a night and day difference. And with Cam Ward, 6'2", 223, creativity, arm talent, he's calm in the pocket for a guy who, does have a little bit of hero traits to him. Accuracy-wise, he's pretty strong. Size and mobility is definitely decent. Did miss some layups. Did have some issues with decision-making, getting the ball out quicker. But for the most part, I think this is a guy that can develop into a franchise quarterback. Both of us have the comp as Jordan Love, who, of course, did require a little bit of time to develop. But I actually think Ward may be a little bit further along than Jordan Love was coming out of Utah State. I think it's definitely good that Jordan Love got to sit as long as he did because he did need that time versus Cam Ward. I think he's a little bit closer to Jordan Love today.
Yeah, 100%. And I see that as well. Like you said, we both have that Jordan Love comp. This, there's no spoiler at this point, will be the first overall pick in the NFL draft. You look at the betting markets, I believe he's minus 20,000 at this point to go first overall. Over under was at 1.5, and all the juice is on the under. It's a foregone conclusion. And I do see why the Titans would be enamored with a quarterback like Cam Ward. Obviously, of course, Will Levis last year, up and down player. Cameron Ward, you're bringing in there. You're giving Brian Callahan a first pick quarterback. And with Cameron Ward, he has the opportunity, if he develops, to be one of the top 5, top 8 overall quarterbacks in Dynasty because of the playmaking talent, the utter structure ability, the natural arm talent he's able to put on display over in Miami this year. I'm excited. Like, this is a guy that I would be comfortable spending upward of the 103 to. I think his ideal range in rookie drafts will typically be in that 103 to 106 range.
Yeah, it's going to depend on what you need specifically at your quarterback position. If you're picking 104 and you only have Bryce Young and Will Levis on your roster or something, and it's a 2-quarterback super flex league, then yeah, Cam Ward's going to come into play for you. But in a vacuum, maybe you prefer a Trevion Henderson, maybe you prefer a Quinshon Judkins and a Marion Hampton, a Ted McMillan, a Emeka Egbuka, of course, Travis Hunter, if he plays wide receiver. So there's going to be more need-based drafting, I would say, this year, specifically in that 103 to like 107, 108 range, because based on the draft capital and landing spots of a lot of the other position players, Cam Ward's only going to factor in really if you need a quarterback. I don't think this is like a Drake May situation from last year where people saw Drake May fall to like the 109 sometimes, and they were like, well, I just got to take this dude, even though I don't need a quarterback. I don't think Cam Ward is necessarily that caliber of prospect. There is definitely weaknesses there. When you pool up the averages of the top 20 dynasty quarterbacks right now, and you look at all of their like metrics in college over their career, Cam Ward's major deficiencies in those metrics are he had a 6.18% sack rate in college, which was about 1% higher than those averages. He also had a 3.4% turnover-worthy play rate, which was about 0.3% higher than those averages. In terms of the advanced efficiency metrics, you look at like an adjusted yards per attempt, you look at EPA, things of that nature. He does fall short in some of those categories because you think of some of the prospects we've had at big schools like Tua's and Trevor Lawrence's and guys that just really up those numbers. He's just not going to really stack up on the whole course of his career to those guys because he didn't really have that great of numbers at Washington State specifically. But this year, you look at the best season marks, positive play rate of those top 20 quarterbacks, 51%. His was at 51.5%. So he hits that mark. You look at boom play percentage. So those big explosive plays that you're generating, 28.1 to 30.3 for Cam Ward. So he hits that mark. Then you look at bust plays. So avoiding negative plays, 12.67%. He was at 12.2% this year. So in his best season, he hits those marks, but over the course of his whole career, not necessarily.
Yeah, the way I look at Cameron Ward, obviously there is a boom bust nature. There is a volatile nature to this prospect profile. However, It's not unlike to prospect profiles in that regard that we've seen. For example, I mean, Anthony Richardson taken at third overall. Yes, you can make the case that he had better overall traits, but I think the reason why we value Cameron Ward here is that he does have the requisite traits to be one of the top end quarterbacks in Dynasty. And if he's getting the first overall draft capital, we both believe that if the Titans were to add like maybe a Luther Burden, maybe an Emeka Egbuka in that second round, you have a Calvin Ridley on the outside, you have an improving offensive line. I see the upside specifically both with Cam, the player, and the situation he's going to merit him potentially being a top 15 overall startup pick in someday.
Yeah, and when you look at like how he stacks up as a runner too, he had 4.7 rush attempts per game over his college career, and his career high PFF rushing grade was like 77. So if you think about, the Lamar Jacksons and Jaden Daniels of the world, he's just not going to be anywhere close to the caliber of rushers of those guys. Who he stacks up best against is like Joe Burrow, who was 78.5 career high rushing grade and 5.53 yards rushing attempts per game. Justin Herbert was 4.4 rushing attempts per game with a 60.4 PFF rushing grade as his career high. And Trevor Lawrence was a 84.6 PFF rushing grade at his career high, 4.73 rush attempts per game. So his best comparable running capability from like our perspective as fantasy players is like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. And again, if he's able to give you, let's just say, 300 to 450 rushing yards per year, that's all you can really ask for, because I do think he has the upside to be one of those 30 plus, 35 plus passing touchdown quarterbacks if he does work out.
Exactly why the Titans are going to buy into him at the first overall pick. Hopefully they're able to build around him in the second round. They already have Ridley. They have a decent running game. They've been building up their offensive line. Coaching wise, for the last couple of years, they've gotten themselves correct. A couple of metrics he does stand out in, just before we get on to the next couple guys here. He was first in the NCAA in completion percentage this year. Like I said, his best season this year was a lot better than a lot of the better seasons of the best other quarterbacks in this class. 88.16% catchable pass rate was first in the class. 41 sacks taken, though, was first in the class this season. And then 90.5 PFF passing grade, 126.0 deep QBR. Those were both top 4 marks in the class. And then turnover worthy play rate, he really cleaned that up this year, 1.3%, which was third lowest in the class and definitely by far the lowest of his career. So he did clean up some things this year, and that's why I think a lot of people are a lot more bought into him than they were coming out of Washington State going into this season. He wasn't really the consensus QB1. People liked him, but he wasn't like thought of the way he is now, which is most NFL teams, I would imagine, have him QB1 in the class.
And it is pretty funny that is the case. Obviously, obviously incomparable as prospects because they both have differences in their profiles. But it is funny, for example, last year we saw Jaden Daniels rise to the second overall pick. Similar stance here with Cameron Ward rising from a guy that was maybe, a first round type of sleeper entering the year to officially going to be the first overall pick come Thursday.
Yep. And this next tier of guys, and for what it's worth, like I said, the difference between a first round quarterback, even where they go in the first round, is going to be dramatically different hit rate wise over the last 20 years that you pull versus second round quarterbacks or third round quarterbacks. So it is very important to contextualize that whoever of this next tier of guys, Jalen Milroe from Alabama, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, and Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, whoever gets drafted in the first round, and ideally if some of these guys go high in the first round, they're going to have much more of an opportunity to start for an NFL franchise for a number of years. There's only one quarterback on the field at all times, only 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And from a dynasty lens, we like when quarterbacks have long-term certainty if they're going to be starting, whether that be because of high draft capital, big contracts, or both. So the quarterback 2 for us consensus-wise in the draft is Jalen Milroe. And a lot of people might disagree with that sentiment. Again, we're going to break down why exactly he's our quarterback 2. And of course, if he goes in the third round and Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart go in the first round, he's not going to be our quarterback 2 post-draft. He just simply won't have the opportunity to get on the field to the same level of those guys. But he's 6'2", 217 pounds, a 99th percentile speed score. This guy is an exceptional runner, not just for a quarterback, but legitimately for any position on the field. He could be probably a Pro Bowl running back if he wanted to.
He has the opportunity to contend for the fastest quarterback in the league, up there with the Lamar Jacksons of the world. Hence why he ran 4.37 at his pro day, I believe was the clock time.
Yeah, and some reported low 4.4s. Regardless, you're looking at freakish level speed for this position. I also really, really want to hammer home that Jalen Milroe has excellent intangibles. Everyone speaks glowingly about him at Alabama, Nick Saban included, and when I listen to him speak, he just sounds like an intelligent, well-spoken kid. And that is a really important trait to have. You guys might not be like, oh, okay, who cares? Like, it's fantasy football. We don't really care about that stuff. But the difference when you're a project quarterback like Jalen Milroe is to becoming Paxton Lynch or Josh Allen or, Will Levis, Zach Wilson, who have tools, or Jaden Daniels or Patrick Mahomes, who had tools but didn't necessarily have it all figured out, is what's above the shoulders, is your ability to get better at the things you're not great at right now. Because Milroe right now is an exceptional runner, has an absolute cannon for an arm. I actually thought had underrated, pocket presence, ability to escape, ability to stand in when he needed to, ability to navigate when he needed to. But there are a couple major flaws to his game that are going to require time, going to require coaching, a lot of work on his part. Ball placement being the biggest one. He is not the most accurate quarterback, to say the least, that you're going to watch. He had a down 2024 season. I think if he had a big 2024 season, we could be talking about this guy as the first overall pick. But in 2023, he was just objectively better over the course of the career of the whole college football season. He, like Cameron Ward, has way too many sacks on his profile, 8-point-something% sack percentage. I'll get the exact number in a second there.
And I'll talk about that in a second.
Decision making and missing reads were also an issue for him. Again, you might think those are a lot of red flags stacking up, but there's a lot of good, to the point that I feel pretty confident that the right coach and the right amount of work on Milroe's perspective could result in this guy 1-2 years down the road being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, and full transparency, my exposure before the All-22 breakdown this year was with the 2 Michigan games. So going into the offseason, I was like, well, there's no way Jalen Milroe can be good. The 2 games that I saw him intently in were his 2 worst games as a collegiate pro. But once you actually break it down, you see, for example, the highlights of the Georgia game, obviously SEC play there with LSU, the game against Oklahoma this past year. You see what the good looks like with Milroe. And because he's under 23 years old, because he's got these freakish athletic traits, he's a guy that I actually did rise on once I studied the full All-22 breakdowns. Again, the volatile floor that exists in the Michigan game is why people are hesitant to even rise him higher than he currently is. Because if you got all of what he did in Georgia, like you said, you'd be getting the first overall pick in this draft. But Jalen Milroe, he actually does remind me a little bit of a Power 5 Malik Willis. Take that for what you will. I think he has better intangibles than Malik. And of course, playing in the SEC, playing for Alabama, definitely a difference in competition of play. But when you're actually looking at Malik Willis, people might say, well, Malik Willis, he's a bust. Obviously, the Titans moved on from him after 2 years, drafted Will Levis. I actually thought he looked really good this year in Green Bay. So if Milroe goes to the right spot, whether that's maybe the Saints at 9, we'll talk about in a second, I think is a very ideal spot. Obviously, as a Buccaneers fan, given your love for Milroe, that's probably not the spot you want to see him go. But Kellen Moore, coming from the Philadelphia Eagles, working intensely with another high intangible, highly athletic quarterback like Jalen Hurts, I can see him seeing Jalen Milroe as his potential Jalen Hurts to be able to work with.
Yeah, I would say as a Milroe stan, certified, captain of the Milroe fan club, the best landing spots that I think he could go to personally would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I think the franchise is stable. The coaching staff is stable. I don't know exactly what they'll do at quarterback. If they drafted Milroe in the first round, are they still going to go after an Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. I don't think Rodgers would probably want to go there. Maybe they just roll with Mason Rudolph for a couple games. Regardless, I do think Milroe is he's got Steeler written all over him. He's the character that a Steeler has is exactly what Jalen Milroe is, which is why I think it's his perfect landing spot. But I also do think he would fit pretty well with the Cleveland Browns. I'd be worried that he has to play too soon, would be my concern with that. And then same goes for the Giants. I think he would fit pretty well there. And with the Giants, at least you have Russell Wilson ahead of you on the depth chart. Maybe you can afford to not play for 10 games, 15 games of your rookie season, and then get on the field later on once you've picked up a thing or two from a veteran quarterback like both of the guys there, Winston and Russell Wilson. So to me, those are like probably the more likely spots he goes to. He also could go to the Rams and sit behind Matthew Stafford for a number of years, potentially like 1-2 years. And that would probably actually be the best case scenario for him. But I just don't know if he's a Sean McVay style quarterback, I guess would be my concern there.
Yeah, he's very interesting. Again, you ended up higher on him comparatively in grade, and we'll talk about the guy that I actually have at 2, and I believe you at 4 in a second. But Jalen Milroe, it's easy to see that if he does get first-round draft capital, that's exactly what we need in our Dynasty rookie drafts. And quite frankly, if him and my quarterback too were to get similar draft capital, I think just the basis of the game we're playing in fantasy football, you would actually have to rank Milroe higher in the fantasy football term. I think we'll talk about Shedeur Sanders in a second. I think he's a better fit from a real-life perspective. But from a straight fantasy perspective, you're getting the guy that can potentially rush for 700 plus rushing yards on a given year. Jalen Milroe is your guy.
Yeah, I tweeted this out when I was breaking down Milrow for the all sleepers video. But you look at quarterbacks who had over an 85 PFF rushing grade, over 6 yards per carry, had at least 10 rushing touchdowns in both of their college careers or all of the seasons that they started as a college quarterback. Only Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels did that. So we're talking about rarefied air as a runner. Like we're talking 33 rushing touchdowns in 2 years as a starter. We're talking 6.3 yards per carry, 53 rushing yards per game, and against some of the best competition in college football, absolutely decimating them on the ground like he did to the Bulldogs this past year. So the ceiling is there for me. I said it in the video, the sleepers video. I do think it is very valid here. If Anthony Richardson was a top 4 pick, why isn't this guy a first round pick to me? Because he is exactly the same bet that you made on Richardson. Only the issue for Richardson, by the sounds of it, is his intangibles.
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair point to make. Again, if he does get first round draft capital, from a fantasy lens, I will move him to quarterback 2, given the sheer upside. But we'll talk about my evaluation as to why Shedeur Sanders was my film-based quarterback 2. Reminds me a lot of Tua Tagovailoa. Very cerebral quarterback, understands the game, great getting through progressions, underrated, beautiful deep ball, and he is the most accurate quarterback in this class. The problem, though, is he thinks he's a little bit more mobile, a little bit more special out of structure than he really is.
Yeah, I think it's an understatement to say he's the most accurate quarterback in this class. To give you an idea, the career marks, top 20 quarterbacks when they were in college, career catchable pass rate of 81.61%. Shedeur Sanders is 3% higher than any top quarterback in this class at 88.16%. So he throws a really accurate ball. 77.64 on target pass rate, which is 3% higher than those career averages. And only, I believe, Dylan Gabriel's even close to that territory in this class. So he is a very accurate passer. And I really do think that in the right system, and to me, that right system would be Cleveland because it's a very timing and rhythm based system. The Rams, maybe long term, would also make sense for that. In the right system, he could develop into a great quarterback. He just, like you said, needs to get the ball out quicker. His internal clock is not developed at this point in time. And he thinks he's Caleb Williams, and he's not and even Caleb Williams had struggles maintaining that level of like elusiveness in the pocket, creating plays outside of structure once he got to the NFL. And with Patrick Mahomes, for example, who's the king of this, he didn't have to do that as a rookie. He didn't start his whole rookie season. So he got to sit back, adjust to the game speed in practice before actually taking NFL snaps. Where Shedeur Sanders, you got to start playing more like a Tua Tagovailoa. Like nobody gets the ball out quicker than Tua. Like that's how you need to play if you're a quarterback like Shedeur.
And that's the other thing too, because another system I think would make sense would be Arthur Smith with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because where did Ryan Tannehill have his best career? It was with the Tennessee Titans when Arthur Smith was in charge. If Shedeur can hone in the need to be the hero, the need to go out and try to extend the play, try to make plays that realistically all of his negative plays will eventually be because he thinks he can out-athlete people at the collegiate level. And yeah, sometimes it'll work against lower level competition, but when you're in the NFL and you're a 4.85, 4.9 quarterback, and I think that might be being generous, you're just simply not going to be able to outmaneuver guys in space. So if Shedeur, like you said, can develop like Tua did, get the ball out of my hands, trust the system, trust my reads, I mean, I can see him being a top 15 level dynasty quarterback. He's really fascinating. Like I said, if him and Milrow both get similar draft capital, I think just based off solely the fantasy football ceiling, you would have to lean Milrow in fantasy football. But I would not be shocked if Shedeur Sanders does end up being a top 3 round type of startup pick, because it's a similar appeal to that of Tua Tagovailoa. And I do feel like if Tua Tagovailoa didn't have those nagging concussion concerns, he'd be valued a lot higher in the dynasty light right now.
Yeah, I think Shedeur is basically the same exact bet you had on Penix last year with a slightly worse arm. With Penix, one thing he did really well was he was a really good decision maker as well. Yes. And Shedeur doesn't throw a lot of interceptions necessarily. It's not like he's throwing picks all the time and fumbling the ball like crazy. He just takes too many sacks. He has 6.9% sack rate, which I believe only Milrow was worse, and that was 8.85. I said I would collect that number. So he's got to learn. Like Milrow, for what it's worth, like you look at the quarterbacks in the top 20 dynasty quarterbacks right now who took the most sacks in college, the answer is Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, and Lamar Jackson. It's like those guys can afford to take some sacks here and there because they're so creative. And the same is said for Jalen Milrow. It's like if Jalen Milrow takes a little bit too many sacks, you can live with it. Kind of okay with me because he's going to create plays that don't that no other quarterback really can make. You don't want him to be Justin Fields in that area because he takes way too many sacks, doesn't create as many positive plays as he should necessarily. But that's why my comp for Milroe is Justin Fields, is because I think he plays a lot like Justin Fields. He just needs to get better in that area. Whereas Shedeur, you got to play more like a Tua, play more like a Penix, play more like a Kirk Cousins, play more like a Jared Goff, where you're getting the football out quickly on time to the guys that you got to throw to. The other thing with Shedeur that's a little bit weird is when you watch the tape, you got to throw out like 80% of it. Like he's throwing screen passes and, behind the line of scrimmage stuff and scrambling and finding 12 down the field because he's a better athlete than everybody most of the time. Like the on-time rhythm throws aren't really present in this offense.
Yeah, and I will say when he is asked to do real quarterback things, I think he does look exceptionally well. My main gripe, like you said, with the decision making, when it's strictly going through your progressions, making the right read, finding the football to the right player, he is extremely good. My problem with his decision making simply becomes how he extends at times. Like he tries to, escape outside the tackle, go on the run, try to make plays out of structure like that. When there's a lot of times where, like you said, with the Tua Tagovailoas, with the Jared Goffs, with those more in structure type of quarterbacks, he doesn't have the ability at this point to just step up in the pocket, trust his read, and deliver it at times. He tries to do too much. If Shedeur can really hone that in, I think he's got a fine NFL career, 10+ year type of starter in the range of outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, his expected draft capital is still inside the first round. It's definitely just because of the whole offseason sample is still higher projected draft capital than Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart, according to NFL Mock Database. But we'll see who goes off the board as QB2, because I think it could be any one of these three guys. And apparently it could even be Tyler Shuck as well, who we'll talk about in a few minutes. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting case study to see where these guys go.
And for the record, if you guys have a ton of, we'll say 206 or earlier picks, you are hoping 4 quarterbacks go in round 1. If 4 quarterbacks go in round 1, I mean, you might be at the 204 in some of your drafts and a Colson Loveland falls or a Matthew Golden
or
falls,
something,
right?
Yeah.
Like quarterbacks going high are exactly what you want to see if you have a ton of draft capital this year. And based off what we're hearing, it sounds like these guys will go high.
Yeah, and it's regardless of whether you need quarterback or not, like you said, because it'll just push players down the board for you as well. So there's a lot to be said for what Shedeur could have happen. I mean, he's obviously, his last name's Sanders, so he's going to be a talking point for everybody, no matter what. I feel pretty level-headed on him. Like, I think we kind of feel like he is what he is. Like, Teddy Bridgewater went in the late first round. That's about the caliber of quarterback prospect we're talking about here, only because his last name is Sanders. He was being mocked 3rd and 2nd overall. And I never agreed with that. I never thought he was that type of quarterback prospect with the ceiling that you need to have when you go that high in the draft. So Jackson Dart, the final guy of this tier, definitely capable of going in the first round. I believe his over-under is set.
He's like
essentially
minus
saying
1,000,
coin flip or just less than a coin flip that'll go in the first round.
No, I think it's even better. I think he's like almost at least minus 400 to go in round 1 right now.
Really?
Yeah. His over-under was...
It could be because they don't have a lot of information on his draft standing and they just don't want people betting on it.
And that could be. So the other thing too is I believe his over-under is at 24.5 for draft position, and the juice is actually on the over. Like he's minus money to go under 24.
Yeah, no, he's an interesting prospect for sure. I would say to give you guys an idea of what Jackson Dart represents, to me on the low end, he's Will Levis with better decision making. And on the high end, he could even turn into what Bo Nix has become. And Bo Nix and Jackson Dart both, toughness, I think underrated arm talent, probably B+ arm talent, mobility, decision-making, efficiency as a quarterback, being able to move the offense along, generate first downs, pick up a first down when you need to with your legs. That's what Bo Nix did so well. Obviously, Bo Nix's college stats are a lot better than Jackson Dart's, but a lot of people still ragged on Bo Nix for playing in like a Mickey Mouse scheme, throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, doing a lot of play action, doing a lot of RPOs. And that's essentially what Jackson Dart is being knocked on for, the same things, which is like, you don't have a lot of NFL dropbacks. You don't have a lot of, hey, 3-step up in the pocket, make a guy, evade a defender, find your third read down the field. You don't see a lot of plays like that of Jackson Dart. From what I've seen, it looks like he can do it. And it looks like a lot of people that are high on Dart think the same thing. But the pocket presence to me needed a little bit of work. I didn't think the internal clock was very good. The deep ball accuracy was a problem as well down the field. If he wasn't throwing to Trey Harris, who was wide open against Furman, he wasn't really hitting a lot of deep balls that required a high degree of difficulty to throw. And the field vision is an issue just because he didn't make a lot of 3 and 4 progression reads.
The thing with Jackson Dart right now for me, like you said, Pocket presence absolutely needs to get worked on. The moment he felt pressure, you can tell his eyes were down. He wasn't going through his reads. He was rushing his process, like you said. The other thing, too, in terms of, like you said, the deep passing ability, a lot of it was manufactured in the context of that Ole Miss offense. And then, like you said, with the decision making, it also just stems back to what I kind of said with Shadur, where sometimes we're trying to escape outside the tackles. And for what it's worth, Jackson Dart is a better athlete than what Shadur Sanders is. But there's just so many opportunities for him to just step up in the pocket, keep his poise, deliver strikes down the field, because he does have the arm talent to be able to make those throws. It's just we didn't see it enough in the context of this offense. It does remind me a little bit, again, if he can hone in the poise aspect of his game, if he can really just trust the system a lot more at the next level, if he does land in a pro-style scheme, reminds me a little bit of Brock Purdy. And people might be thinking, well, Brock Purdy, game manager, like it's funny because the concept of Brock Purdy to me is so skewed because people want him to sound like Jimmy Garoppolo operating that 49er scheme. But when you watch Brock Purdy, there is way more out of structure than people will let on. I mean, Brock Purdy had over 300 rushing yards this year. Brock Purdy, in my opinion, did a lot of his damage working outside of structure, making plays on the whim. And I do see that being a strength of Jackson Dart. You mentioned, for example, the Saints would be linked to him. I think that would make a lot of sense. It's funny that I obviously just compared him to Brock Purdy, because if the Rams were to take Jackson Dart, play him behind Matthew Stafford, I can see McVay looking at him as his next Purdy.
Yeah, and again, the advanced metrics like Dart. If you look at like career EPA per play, he's basically like right in the range of like where Bryce Young was, Caleb Williams. We're talking about an efficient quarterback on a play in, play out basis. What's your job as a quarterback? Go and pick up first downs and touchdowns. Like that's what you're supposed to do. Get the ball to your playmakers, run when you got to. Don't turn the ball over. Like those types of things, Jackson Dart did pretty well just on face value. And the numbers suggest that other than these like super prospects who played at huge schools like, Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa and stuff, he was basically on pace with like some of the better prospects we've seen over the last like 5-10 years. It's just the decision-making was a bit of an issue. The accuracy was a bit of an issue. You have to Frankenstein him as a quarterback a little bit, where he's not, he's hard to evaluate. I think both him and Sanders and Milroe too, they're all very difficult evaluations. One of them will probably hit. I just don't know which one.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like we mentioned that there's volatility in Cam Ward's profile, but we love the upside, and he will get the Tetherman of the first overall pick. And for what it's worth, we do have him valued higher just from an evaluation standpoint than these other three. But it's funny because like all these three guys, we see the upside cases for. It's just their profile is a lot more murkier than even Cam Ward's is.
Yeah, and exactly. If we find all three of these dudes, let's say Milroe goes 21 to the Steelers, Shadur goes 30 to the Browns who trade back into the first round, and Dart goes 33 to the Giants or whatever, like that's great news for all of us in rookie drafts. Those guys are going to populate that late first, early second round area of rookie drafts, and they're going to push the tight ends down the board. They're going to push Matthew Golden, Caleb Johnson types down the board. So again, if you're a fan of, just getting good value at your rookie picks, whether you're in a position to need a quarterback or not, you want these guys going high in the draft. And again, assuming the capital is similar across the board for all these people, I would rate it Milroe, Dart, Sanders, and you would have Sanders ahead of Dart would be the only difference between that. Sanders ahead of Milroe would be the only difference between that.
So just specifically from a fantasy perspective, if Milroe and Shadur both go in the first round, I just think from a fantasy perspective, I would actually have Milroe quarterback too, because he would have the Tetherman of the first round capital. And you want to hear my bold take? I do think all four of these guys go in the first round. The reason being, this is viewed as, after like the 10th overall pick, a general consensus bad draft class. Like we've seen, like the blue chippers at the top are one thing, but there's kind of a flat tier after, like I said, 9th, 10th overall. And I can see teams saying, well, if there's no real difference making talents left on the board, let me take my succession plan at quarterback. And I see, for example, we're seeing rumors the Browns want to move back up into the first round. The Giants want to move back up into the first round. There's just way too much smoke around these quarterbacks right now, especially two in the betting markets. I believe Milroe is the only one that isn't minus money to go in the first round, which, by the way, if that is available for you, I'm absolutely taking. I think there's a possibility Milroe, like I said, goes 9th overall to the Saints.
Yeah, I think at the very least, these guys should all go in the top 50 picks. But in the first round specifically would be excellent news because obviously those late first round capitals are going to make a difference over like early second round capital in terms of the hit rate projected and, how much opportunity they're going to get to start and stuff. Like you think even a guy like Will Levis had a full season really unencumbered to become a starting quarterback. He just isn't good enough. Like if you get a full season out of Dart or a full season out of Milroe, like you never know. They show signs of promise. The team sticks with them for a couple of years and You might have the next Jalen Hurts on your hand or the next Kirk Cousins on your hand, where they're not a first-round quarterback, but the team believes in them enough that they are going to let them start for the duration of that time. So let's rattle through these last couple quarterbacks, a little bit obviously less important because we don't know or expect really that they're going to get first round capital.
No.
Will Howard is the guy that both of us have over Tyler Shuck. Now, Tyler Shuck from Louisville is the one getting the buzz that he could even go, close to the first round or at least in the top 2 rounds or maybe 3 rounds. I personally don't buy it. I just don't think he's going to go that high, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. With Will Howard from Ohio State, I saw very much that you brought up Brock Purdy for Jackson Dart. I saw like more of that Brock Purdy light. Again, it feels insulting to say Brock Purdy is a game manager, but that is the type of quarterback that he is. He just brings a little bit more to the table. Will Howard was a game manager at Kansas State, but he brought more to the table when he went to Ohio State. And obviously it helps when you got the Avengers out there, the 2 running backs and the 2 receivers or the 3 receivers that they had, and all the good offensive line protection that Will Howard has. But I could see a team in the 3rd, 4th round taking a swing on this dude, specifically the Las Vegas Raiders, who have Geno Smith, who's a little bit older, and have his college offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly. I would say 3rd round, take a shot on Will Howard, see what happens. Maybe he's a succession plan for you at quarterback. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders are the team that pulled the trigger on Howard. And let's say he goes 3rd round to the Raiders. Where does he go in a rookie draft for you? Like, he's probably a mid to late 3rd round pick that's worth a swing for me.
Probably around there. It's funny because my comp for him, Super Bowl champion to my chagrin, but Nick Foles. He reminds me a lot of Nick Foles. The size, requisite size here, 6'4", 236 pounds. He isn't the most overly mobile quarterback, but when you're in the red area, inside the 5, inside the 10, we saw specifically in that Chip Kelly scheme, he did get Will Howard moving. Again, when you have that sheer size as a quarterback, you can be weaponized inside goal line situations. And I do think if he does go to the Raiders, does pair up with Chip Kelly again, they aren't really in a position long-term, I would say, at the quarter. Like, I think Geno Smith would be the perfect bridge for them. He signed, 3 or 4 year deal at this point. If they view Will Howard as a guy that they can take in round 3, round 4, maybe develop around Geno, maybe they can make the decision 3 years time. Okay, now we want to move on to Will Howard. I think that's an option for them. Again, he's not going to get the draft capital as any of the guys above him, or probably the draft capital of Tyler Shuck. But I do think there's some on the table here for him to potentially develop. Maybe not as a full-fledged starter, but I mean, we've seen, for example, Jacoby Brissett have stints as a part-time starter bridge quarterback in the NFL. And if you're getting that type of usage, that utility in the late third round of your rookie drafts, I think it's a worthwhile dart to take. Now, it obviously depends what running backs are available, what wide receivers are available. Maybe somehow like a Mason Taylor is available. At that point, I would actually shift away from the quarterback position. But I do think, depending on what's on the board, he's a worthwhile dart to take.
Yeah, it also really, really depends on how quickly could this guy actually start. He goes to the Rams in the 3rd round. You're like, well, there's a possibility he's starting a season or maybe half season for them and given a real shot at this. But if he goes to like the Eagles as their backup quarterback, it's like he's probably not going to start unless Hurts is injured. So you don't want a situation like that. It's just with Howard, I think he's actually just a good enough quarterback, like the point guard ability. He probably had the easiest job in college football this year, but he didn't screw it up. I mean, the accuracy, the toughness, he extends plays, has size, has mobility, just not the greatest arm velocity, not the greatest poise under pressure. Had some turnovers that were kind of boneheaded mistakes a little bit. And I think, like I said, his job was half field reads with Avengers, wide receivers, and running backs. So it's not like he really is a pro style quarterback at this point in time.
And maybe I shouldn't use this as a negative on every quarterback, because most quarterbacks will look bad against Michigan, given the fact that they're probably the most mimicked pro-style scheme in the college football landscape at this point. But you saw him in that Michigan game, and I believe he took a big hit early, and like his pupils were dilated. It's almost like he realized, oh shit, this is the big moment for me. And for what it's worth, again, that was that game. Obviously, he ended up going on the college football run, played some excellent ball. I'm not going to harp on that for him, but you did see in that game, it's like he was absolutely rattled in that Michigan game.
Yeah. No, there's moments where you're like, okay, maybe this guy's just Aiden O'Connell or whatever, and that's the best he's going to be at the next level. Tyler Shuck is one that we do need to talk about a little bit more in depth, and we'll just rattle through the final guys. Just because Tyler Shuck, there's reports I've seen teams have him QB1, even over Cam Ward. I've seen reports that he's going to go in the 1st round. I've seen reports that people think he has some of the best character of any quarterback in this class as well. I mean, here's the lowdown with Tyler Shuck. University of Louisville quarterback. He started college backing up a sophomore, Justin Herbert. So he's been in college football for a long time. He has been a 7-year player. in college football since 2018. Justin Fields, I believe, was a junior in high school when he got to college football. So this is an old quarterback, but he's got a nice release, NFL size, a lot of reps, obviously, but not as a starter. He's only been a 1-year starter. So that's why he's red flags all over the board for us. Did improve a lot in 2024. Mobile enough to scramble and pick up first downs and keeps his eyes downfield, throw the ball when you need to, on time with his throws for the most part. My thought on him was, I didn't like him under pressure. I thought he crumbled. Decision making. I mean, there's a play that goes viral all the time of him where he like basically just hoofs it to like the defense. And it's like Will Levis caliber bonehead mistake. He has, in my opinion, a pretty low ceiling given that he's already very developed because he's 25. And the ball placement I thought was an issue. It's not that he's almost 26 during his rookie season that bothers me because I'm like, oh, he won't have that long of a career. It's like quarterbacks play a long time if you're good. My problem is that he has all of these issues while being almost 26, where it's like how much meat is really left on the bone for this kid to get better as a quarterback.
See, I was a little bit higher on you comparatively. Again, he's my quarterback 6. I'm not overly excited about Tyler Shuck, but I do see some redeeming qualities. You get a little bit of size there, obviously, with the 6'5", 220 build. He was relatively mobile, 4.63 also at the combine. I think that also showed up on tape. And for the most part, you saw his ability to thread the needle in certain situations. I believe there was that one throw where he's rolling out to his left, delivers it to the back hash, perfect on the line, delivers it on a dart right into the receiver's mitts. Like, you see flashes, and I also, for the most part, think in terms of being able to read a defense, having the intangibles, he is up there with really a lot of the quarterbacks in this class. Obviously, you would expect that given the fact that he will be turning 26 years old, but kind of reminds me, if you remember when Davis Mills came out a couple years ago, and it was like, okay, he's semi-interesting.
A great comp, actually.
He could be like a backup / a bridge. If he has to start a game or two, you're like not overly worried, but realistically, he's not somebody that's going to stop you from going out and seeking your CJ Stroud. If he starts 5 games in his rookie year and he looks semi-impressive, and if you actually look at Davis Mills in that rookie season, I mean, we're talking about 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, completed 66% of his passes. Like, I can see Tyler Shuck, maybe if he got drafted to Cleveland, having a semi-decent rookie season. But if they're picking in the top 4 next year and Arch Manning's available or Lenore Sells is available, the Cleveland Browns will be selecting a quarterback.
Yeah, he also, speaking of that 2020 quarterback class, I've seen people float out Kyle Trask as a comp for him too, which I don't mind either. Yeah. Big quarterback, has prototype size and all this kind of stuff, and people can talk themselves into him as a player. I frankly if he gets the draft capital, it's obviously great news. Like, if for some reason someone takes him in the first round or top 50 or whatever, my attitude is let your league mates chase the capital and just take whatever player fell to you.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much how I view it as well. Again, if he's drafted to a situation like Cleveland at the beginning of the second and the dynasty market's still like, oh yeah, he's a mid to late third, you want to take a dart there?
I'll take swings on him in the mid second at that point. Like, he'll probably start right away for them. Like, it's all a matter of where does he go? Because generally dynasty players are smart enough to recognize that if a quarterback gets draft capital, he'll probably get pushed up the board.
And that's the thing. It's like, it isn't 2021 anymore. Like, I remember there was a period of time where like Davis Mills was like a 7th round startup pick after that rookie season. It's like, okay, I don't think we're dumb enough to do that again if Tyler Shuck were to have a Davis Mills level rookie season. But there still should be a margin for you to be able to profit if he doesn't land in that type of situation, even if it's just, oh, you get a 2026 second after spending the 303 on him this year.
Yeah, exactly. And the final tier quarterbacks is just kind of like, we'll see. Maybe they go to an interesting landing spot. Yeah. Like, the only reason I would spend a 4th round rookie pick or even a priority UDFA pickup on Quinn Ewers from Texas, Dylan Gabriel from Oregon, Kyle McCord from Syracuse, any other quarterback in this class, maybe Riley Leonard from Notre Dame.
Curtis Rourke, baby.
Curtis Rourke from Indiana. Like, if there's any other quarterback that becomes moderately interesting, it's going to be completely dependent on where they go and how soon can they start. That's pretty much all that matters at this point in rookie drafts when it comes to this quarterback position. Quinn has a good arm. I'll give him that. He has a good arm. He just makes so many bonehead decisions. He has awful processing. He's had great supporting casts and honestly has de-escalated their ceilings. Like, how many times have we said Xavier Worthy would have been better with a better quarterback? Matthew Golden would have been better with a better quarterback. Adonai Mitchell would have been better with a better quarterback. Like, that's very telling to me. Like, you can't convince me this guy's gonna be a top 15 NFL quarterback someday when he like literally made everyone around him worse, not better. So Quinn, maybe you sit him behind Stafford for 2 years and he turns into something if the Rams take him for in the 5th round. That would actually be the only way I would actually be interested in Quinn Ewers, is if he is sitting behind somebody who can teach him the things he's bad at, which is processing,
a lot,
deep ball mistakes, ball security, all that stuff. And I think Stafford and the Rams is the perfect situation for that. So if they take a 4th round swing on Quinn Ewers, maybe I would swing on him in the 4th round of my rookie drafts. But for the most part, I'm just not interested in Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, or Kyle McCord.
Like, I'm sorry, when I'm looking at Quinn Ewers, he's a pumpkin under pressure. He's not accurate. Sucks at the deep ball, like you said. When you make Xavier Worthy, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond look semi-incapable at times, that's more of an indictment on you, considering the fact that we saw Worthy literally catch 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. And based off our film evaluation on Golden and Bond, we realized those guys were winning deep, and Quinn Ewers just could not lead them out. On top of that, could not read a defense at this point. Very RPO heavy scheme, obviously, with Texas. The only redeeming quality that we have at this point is, he's got a pretty ball, and sometimes when he's on and when he's in the pocket, that release looks like Aaron Rodgers.
I really wish he had gone and maybe transferred or come back to school for another year, because he needs a year that he puts it all together. And Frank, I don't think it'll ever happen. He was like the #1 high school recruit in the country for 4 years ago, and he just has never put it all together for even a couple games in a row, let alone a whole season. So I just don't think it'll ever happen with Quinn Ewers. I think it's probably a mental issue for him, but who knows? Maybe he gets at the right landing spot and the right coach just knows how to push his buttons and get the best out of him. And Sean McVay would be his best hope.
I will say in 5-10 years, once he has his first kid, he will be throwing a pretty football in the backyard with his son.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, none of these guys, Dylan Gabriel, kind of a game manager, undersized, long college career. Kyle McCord, same thing. I mean, he's got more size, I would say, than Dylan Gabriel, but I've seen people rave about his arm talent a little bit. I think he's moderately interesting in the right landing spot. But again, best case scenario, these guys turn into Aiden O'Connell caliber dynasty assets, where like maybe there's a couple games that they start for you, and because you drafted them as priority UDFAs and stash them on your taxi squad and your quarterback 2 gets injured, you can throw them in there. That's like best case scenario with these guys.
Yeah, and someone that's not on the list, but you best be sure in 25 bench, 5 taxi squad leagues, especially for the meme, I got to pick up my Burlington boy with Curtis Rourke.
Yeah. And I've seen people be like, Riley Leonard's kind of interesting, or Brady Cook is kind of interesting. I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, these guys are not good quarterbacks, but all right.
Brady Cook, the same Brady Cook that massacred Luther Burden's 2024 season. No, thank you.
Frankly, I think Luther Burden had more to do with that than people think. But anyways, that is the quarterback position in the 2025 draft. Again, if you guys want to know more thoughts on them, drop them down below in the comments. Post-draft, these will probably change depending on landing spots and draft capital, specifically of the top 4, which are the relevant ones for the most part. But maybe, who knows, we get a surprise high draft capital spot out of Will Howard or Tyler Shuck or one of these other guys. Let us know what you guys think of the quarterbacks down below. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have blowback on Jalen Milroe over Shedeur Sanders. I want the record to show that Danny actually does have Shedeur Sanders ahead of Jalen Milroe. It is me that is bringing up the wagon here with the Jalen Milroe standing. But let's just put it this way. You give this guy an opportunity to start, even if he can't hit the broadside of a barn, he's going to be fantasy relevant. So that's why I like Jalen Milroe so much. And I do think he can hit the broadside of the barn with the right coaching. So like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. Running backs, we already did. Wide receivers, we already did. All of our Dynasty rookie rankings are available on Flock Fantasy. Our overall startup rankings, Superflex 1 quarterback, and our draft guide available over there too. And make sure you are tuned in right after the NFL draft is over, probably Saturday night, Sunday morning, heading into rookie drafts. If you guys are psychos and you like to draft your rookie drafts right away, like some of our leagues will probably be kicking off Sunday afternoon, Danny, we will have our draft guide totally up to date for you with all the updates that happen during the NFL draft, a couple superlatives thrown in there, prospect model stuff. So you want to stay tuned here, subscribe, and also subscribe over on Flock Fantasy using the promo code FSC for 7 days for free, 30% off, 6 months for free when you sign up annually. When you get an annual Mother Flocker, you get a free team review from us. Definitely check that out if you guys are interested. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.